Welcome to Tales from the Golden Imp. I am Joe Craig, the Impish Skald. Last time we saw all parties begin their travels to get to the city of Durg. We also found that there are some mysterious women looking for Meg that have set out for Credo. The leadership of Elias also set out to meet and hold council in the city of Seros. We also saw the contingency from the Great Falls Forest made it to the legendary city of Durg. Have they made it in time? Will they be able to disrupt the Skald's plans? We will find out in this episode of the Calmbringer Cycle. Welcome to Tales from the Golden Imp. Episode 9, Durg. Through gasps in awe, the group of elves and the sole dwarf take in the sight that is Durg. The legendary city lay out before them, carved walls adorned with marble, inlays of gold and gemstone. The city glistened in the dim light as the great stair lay before them, descending to the heart of the city. Staircases come from this main stair like veins from an artery. The great carving of Belden at the opening to the great temple showed the glow from the forge that held within from even this height. The stairs themselves were two sets of stairs paired to the sides with a large ramp in the middle. The ramp was designed for the wagons to move to and from the forge to haul goods and supplies to the forge fires. The city was alive as people moved from the residential districts to the marketplace and of course to the temple district. As the group entered into the city proper, a call comes to them. Halt there. Why are you so well armed coming to the city of Durg? This came from a pair of dwarven soldiers dressed in very fine plate armor. The pair of soldiers had their beards presented. The one on the left had a small beard. At first seemed to be a younger soldier, but at a closer look it was a female dwarf, whose beards don't grow as long as their male counterparts. Greetings and well met. We are from the Great Falls Forest, and we have urgent news for the Jarl and Frue Burduli. We must meet with them as soon as possible. We have come from Malatin and have reason to believe that trouble is on the way. Captain Lahti stepped forward to present her hand to the pair of guards. The two guards exchanged a glance before the male accepted the outstretched hand. Well met. And trouble, you say? I suppose if you have official business, you may want to hurry. We'll take a pair of you while the others remain here to sort out this old mess of weapons and all. You arm for bear, and we are in short supply of bear down here in Durg. A pity, really. Bear is pretty good if cooked right. Lahti didn't hesitate. Dandros, with me. The rest of you remain here and see about getting some temporary lodging and a place to put our weapons until they're needed. Dandros stepped forward through the throng and presented himself to the guards as well. Journeyman Dandros of Smallwater at your service. It has been a long time since my feet have crossed this threshold. With that, the pair of guards split off. The woman served as guide to the Jarl Hall, where the Jarl and Frue would be holding court to settle disputes and hearing troubles and the like. As the rank of Jarl in the city of Durg is closely tied to the temples of Belden, they are located in the same area of the city. In fact, you pass the entrance to the Jarl's Hall on the way to chapel. Dandros and Lahti followed their guide, though Dandros knew the way all too well. They were on a mission, and perhaps an escort would get them out of the waiting bit of this whole ordeal. Not just anyone could get an audience with the Jarl without waiting, and of course there were always disputes about chickens and thieving and the like to be heard, one man's quarrel with another, with all things that fell outside the direct jurisdiction of the law came forth to the Jarl. Of course, judicial matters also came before the Jarl, but that was typically under different circumstances. Much to Dandros' delight, they were given passage from the common waiting room, where you could petition for a day or better, sometimes before you were given an audience with the Jarl. Most would deal with lesser authoritarians, such as one of the Jarl's advisors, which were from the noble houses of the dwarven people, each a ranking member of the Temple of Belden. The pair were shown to a room where the current folk were awaiting their time before the Jarl. Most of these were merchants and craftsmen. One of the craftsmen called over to Dandros. "Oh, there's a sight for sore eyes. What are you doing here after so long? Call you back to be anointed and no doubt?" The short, wide fellow approached Dandros, gave him a tight embrace, tight enough to pop his back. "Bear Ironfoot, I would have never guessed running into you here." "No, not for anointing. Other business for the Jarl, however. How have you been?" Bear smiled at him and then looked a bit and frowned. "You cut your beard." "Been a while, but you've cut your beard. Everything okay? You down on your luck, or what's the deal?" "Yeah, I cut my beard. Seems I was a horrible husband and felt I'd dishonored Belden, so I cut my beard. That's one of the craft that I never got the hang of. That and I've been mining the very stone I was called to create things with. So yeah, I cut my beard." Dandros spoke quietly with a disappointment in his voice. In a consoling tone, "Oh, come now. You didn't pick an easy wife with, and those things are rarely just on one person. As for the mining, it's a noble trade and it's times. And if times were rough, I can see how someone that understands stone the way you do would be a good look at it. I bet you there's not been one cave-in on your watch." "No, there hasn't been. Thank you, Bear. It's been lonely out in the world. Things were so simple here at the temple. Do your craft and improve. Then they send you out into the world and it all goes to shite. Or at least it did for me. But enough about me. Look at you. A merchant's ring, and is that a master's tome? Life's been treating you all right then." With a laugh, Bear stretched out his hand to allow Dandros to take him in. Yeah, things have been right good. Couldn't thank you enough for all those long nights with me refining gold from the ore. Known to be one of the best purifiers now, and it's all thanks to you. So keep that chin up. Belden knows how to forge you. And you know what they say, the harder the tempering, the better the blade. If life's been this hard for you, I can't wait to see how you come out the other side of it, my brother. Who's this thing you have with you?" Dandros introduced Captain Esmine Lahti to Bear, and the two caught up on how life had been treating them, in a bit more detail. Before long, Bear was called in to speak to the Jarl, leaving just another pair of miners from the looks of things. And so they waited. Olan, there you are. I've been looking for you. Lord Ethan Eldos called out to the Dwarven Lord. Ethan was wearing his traveling clothes now, and seemed to have a pack on his back. His blonde hair was pulled back for the road as well. Olan Durf himself was ready for the road. "What is it, Ethan? Why are you looking for me? Don't you have miles to be logging before the sun abandons you?" "Well, yes I do, but I was hoping that you could come with me on that journey. I think if you spoke for the people of Chunda, things will show to be more pressing. We need the council to understand. I don't think that my voice alone is enough." Ethan said plainly, with only a touch of manipulation in the words. Ethan was the politician between the two leaders. Olan laughed one solitary laugh. "So you think you'll be needing me after all? Your golden hair's not the only thing getting on in age, is it? Whose wife got to you, yours or mine?" With that, Ethan laughed himself. "Both, actually. There's no winning when those two women agree on something. Never has been. They run this mountain, I fear. Ah, you're right about that one. Fine, I'll come along with you. But you know how I hate big cities. You owe me a drink or 10 on the way. When do we leave? Whenever you're ready. I've got a few of my best soldiers to travel with us. Guards and a couple of war priests from the temple. If you feel that's sufficient, we can go this afternoon or in the morning. Olan thought for a moment, rubbed his belly. Well, I did just finish eating, so, be good for the road now. Suppose we can go whenever you're ready. Which you, look to be ready for the road already. Ethan smiled at that. Excellent. How about I get us a cask of ale for the road, and then we go ahead and see if we can't log some miles before the sun sets on us. Oh, from the imp? How could I pass up on that? That woman has some amazing ale. Let me pen a letter to the missus, and I'll meet you at the south gate. Ethan nodded to Olan, and the pair separated to handle the small affairs. Before long, the pair, flanked by 10 guards and 2 war priests of Hallis, were on their way. The curving road heading south by southwest, rarely straight for very long at all. The trees at this altitude were all twisted and gnarled things from the constant onslaught of wind. They did their best to break the wind. It was only after you were out of the wind that you realized just how much the wind howled. The trees still swayed in the wind, but it was so much warmer here just not having the chill from the polar cap of Kheasurid biting at you. After a few hours of riding, Olan called over to Ethan in a serious tone. So, your lot still think we eat goblin? Ethan looked over with a smirk. Here we thought you all were still eating each other. Unfortunately, that rumor still lingers. You think people would understand how a story gets pulled out of context? I mean, your ancestor did eat goblin. One winter, 400 years ago, and you won't let us live it down. It was a blizzard and the goblin had died. They didn't have anything else to eat that wouldn't get back up and walk out of the stomach. Let's see what you do when you had to choose between ghoul flesh and goblin or starvation. Olan said with a laugh. Perhaps we can kill that rumor and bring our people together after all this mess is said and done. What about your lot? Still say we're backstabbing folk that aren't to be trusted? Retorted Ethan. Olan tapped his shield. It was strapped to his back. Can never be too careful. Olan gave a wink, and the pair shared a laugh. Many of the guards exchanged glances, as if they were preparing for a fight between the two leaders. Even below the tree line, the wind was howling pretty fierce. Think there's going to be a storm up north. I hope that lot of would-be heroes are safe for it. Storms this time of year are typically pretty rough. Ethan looked up as if noticing for the first time. I wouldn't bet with you on that one. May Hallis look over it. To the north of the Dragon's Maw, the wind was howling something fierce. It was slowing the progress of Jaina, Regos, Meg, and Holly the donkey. They were shielding their eyes, trying to find any kind of shelter they could. The sky was spitting snow, and those huge flakes of snow accumulated quickly. It was early for such storms, but they were very close to the frozen wastes. Jaina called for a halt. This isn't working. If a storm hits like it looks it is, we'll lose sight of each other and likely lose someone. We need to tie off in a line. As a stiff wind, almost as to prove a point, slammed into them, Meg was forced to take a step to catch herself in the wind. I'll take anchor. Meg, I think you need to be in the middle. Regos, that leaves you at the end with Holly. Regos already had a coil of rope off the pack animal and was stretching things out. How much lead do you want between us in case there's trouble? And the like. 10 feet between each, Meg interrupted. wanted to make sure she was part of this process. They began to tie off. Meg did the tying, not trusting the other two with a good knot. I worked on a ship for a while, I know what I'm doing. Another blustery gust pushed all but Jaina to the side, and there wasn't a whole lot of side left to be pushed. That's when they looked up at the wall of snow that was heading their way. This was going to be bad, and it was going to get bad quickly. It looked like it was dusk already, with the noonday sun failing to break through the clouds above them. They trudged on, walking still but oh so slowly. Regos had his hood up, trying to do the best he could to protect his face from the snow and the wind, with the temperature dropping as well. It was, something that Regos in all his days had never experienced. That morning was warm, not hot, but warm. In the sun, at least. The wind was always there. He hadn't noticed it creeping up on them until it was pushing Meg about. Not that he was faring much better, but he only had 30 or 40 pounds on her. The three figures slowly put one foot in front of the other, with no aid or respite in sight. As the wall of snow hit them, they could barely make out the shape of the person in front of them. Jaina just targeted her path for the next road marker, guessing at times. There were only so many options for the roads in the Dragontooth Mountains. It was still early enough in the season that there would not be false bridges and such over the ravines. Still, it was slow going. Slowly continuing on, step after arduous step, they continued. The wind had gotten stiffer, and they were in full blizzard now. Jaina called back to see if everyone was still with them, knowing that they were because of the rope. Meg and Regos had started combining their strength to keep up with the sure-footed Jaina. Regos had his arm around Meg, allowing her to lean on him. With reluctance, she had little choice but to accept his help. She had fallen a couple times before he offered. Together they continued on. They thought they heard Jaina call out, but could only make out a single word. Holly was doing her part, not liking the weather one bit, but not liking her current situation any better. She also followed the lot. She only had to be coaxed into motion once through this whole adventure, and that was when they broke camp this morning. It was almost as if she knew the storm was coming. Not that Regos would be surprised to learn that she did. Animals always seem to know what was coming. Holly continued on with them though, and more than once had nudged Regos in the back to say, "Keep going." And so he did. His beard was frosted over with snow already. The maps he had looked at, they were in a no man's land now. There wouldn't be any place to get a warm bath and a meal tonight. Meg was not doing so well with the cold. She was lean with a runner's body, so not a lot of insulation, aside from the clothing she was wearing, and that didn't seem to be enough. She was dressed in a fur-lined coat and boots with heavy pants. None of it seemed to help her now, though. Her fingers were hurting her already, and her face was taking a beating even with the hijab of her people covering her face. That was designed for the wind of the deserts, not for an ice storm. It helped, but not as much as she would liked. The severity of the storm, if it didn't pass soon, they would have to stop. Meg needed a fire, but good luck in lighting one in this mess. At least there was Regos and his magic. That is when things went from bad to worse. With the bray, Holly was sliding down an embankment. Her hooved feet betrayed her, it seemed. She was sliding for the edge of a cliff at a quick pace. "Jaina, brace yourself! Unless we all go for a nasty ride. Holly's falling. It would take all of us to pull her up if we were lucky." Of course, Jaina only heard the brace bit, and it was from a lucky break in the wind that even that was heard. Jaina spun to put her back against the wind, and she stabbed the blade of her glaive in the ground, bracing the butt of the glaive against her thigh. Regos pulled Meg's kukri and went running for the donkey. He would save the beast if he could. Meg was pulling slack and bracing herself for a pull that would be on her soon. That's when the donkey's hooves found the sky. Regos' eyes went wide as the rope pulled taut. He wasn't ready. The spell he was trying to do wasn't ready. The plan he had in his head wasn't ready. He was almost there, but he wasn't there. He had found a rock to loop the rope around and quickly dropped to his back. Nearly lost Mag's kukri. But that was an emergency if they couldn't save the beast. He focused his arcane magic on the rope that held the supplies to Holly's back. They couldn't afford to lose both the donkey and the supplies. They could at least sell the donkey for more goods if need be. As the rope pulled him, he focused on the magic instead of the pain. He focused his energy on that rope. And with the pop of the fire, the rope was burnt in two. The supplies went flying from the beast of burden down into the crevasse below. Regos was at the edge, or close to it. He had one spell up his sleeve, but he had prepared just in case. If this wasn't that time, there wouldn't be another one. He pulled hard on the force of his will and the will of the world. He felt the flows of wind and used it. He pulled on this wind and used it as a source of energy as he summoned yet another gust of wind to push up from below the donkey to make the beast just a bit lighter. "Pull! Pull now!" Regos shouted as he pulled with all of his might, focusing on the wind. As he pulled with all his might, and the gust of wind forced the donkey up closer to the edge. Regos pulled the slack that was created. He then felt a pull at his waist from Meg and Jaina. He pulled and walked backwards as they pulled Regos. As the gust of wind began to die, Holly had found purchase and scrambled to her hooves. They had lost their provisions, but they had saved Holly. They were still fighting the blizzard. But now, with no firewood, what would they do? Well, they started doing what they had to do first, and that was keep moving. One foot in front of the other, one step at a time. The cold would get them if they didn't keep moving. Smallwater and Lahti. The Jarl will see you now. The stout attendant called into the room that Dandros and Captain Lahti had been waiting in for a couple hours now. The pair had spent some time in talking a bit and mostly sitting in silence as the room cleared out. Apparently, the last dispute was one that took some time to resolve. The pair entered the Jarl's chambers, which was a long room with a fireplace in the center of the room. The rectangular room allowed for partitioners to cross the distance to the raised dais where the Jarl and Frue both still sat. Lahti followed Dandros' example as Dandros came in and gave a bow to the Jarl and his wife. Jarl Burduli. This is Captain Esmine Lahti from the Great Falls Forest in the city of Eldos. I am Dandros of Smallwater, but I have been living in Malatin for the past 8 years. We are here on urgent business, and thank you for seeing us on short notice. With the introduction, the Jarl motioned for the pair to rise from their bow. The chamber was lit by those same lanterns that were enchanted to produce magical light. The chamber itself was played down in comparison to most of Durg. The walls were carved with stone murals, but nothing else. The murals were small squares that represented each Jarl that served the hall. Each Jarl was given a 12 by 12 inch square. They were carved post-mortem and serve as a record for the Jarl's rule. Aside from the carvings, the hall was bare from anything like marble or gold. This was not true, however, for the Jarl and his wife. They both were near gaudy levels of gold jewels. Jarl Turfrid Burduli was a short dwarf standing just shy of 4 feet in height. But what he lacked in height, he made up in girth. Easily weighing around 300 pounds, the rotund dwarf looked over the pair. Well, let's hear it. I assume this will prepare me for the emergency council that I have been called to Seros to take part in. What is so urgent that I need to be disturbed from the matters of my state here in Durg? This is where Captain Lahti took one step forward and began to describe the situation to the Jarl. Jarl Burduli, we are here because the city of Durg is in danger of attack. Though the full nature of the attack is unknown to us, we do know that a few thousand goblins are on their way to the city, arriving through the tunnels that serve as the road from here to the western stretches of the Dragontooth Mountains. They are led by someone that is claiming to be Skald Reborn. This person, they indeed do have the gift to control beasts, so it is likely that there would be beasts with her. A few thousand goblins do not threaten Durg, interrupted Jarl Burduli. What else? There has to be more than this to pull me from my duties here. Lahti didn't take well to being interrupted, but she kept her composure and continued. Well, we believe that this is only one prong of the attack that's coming to the city. This is where we go from facts to speculation. We agree that a small force would break against the walls of the city of Durg. We suspect that this is an infiltration force that is coming to disrupt Durg and distract from the main assault. And who exactly comprises this "we" that you speak of? Burduli responded with a little more interest now. The "we" are Lord Ethan Eldos, Lord Olan Durf, Sir Gillard Tones, head tactician of the military forces in Feldas, Dol Karish, the high priest of the Temple of Hallis in Malatin, and Sir Parthus Mosh, the Templar in the Temple of Hallis in Malatin. Lahti responded directly and to the point. She realized that the flower words were wasteful here. Jarl Burduli rose at this point and began to walk ponderously around the edge of the dais, stroking his beard. The names mentioned clearly meant something to the Jarl. Quite the least. And how come you by this information? And why is there a miner from Malatin here to present such information? The word miner was spat as a near insult. Lahti fought the urge to take yet another step forward. Journeyman Dandros was an eyewitness to the forces that are en route to the city of... Well, miner Dandros of Smallwater. Let us hear your eyewitness testimony. You and I both know that you have turned from your call when you set down your tools and picked up a pick and a shovel. With the title of journeyman wasted upon you, you from all accounts, can you even repeat your oaths at this point? He who trims his beard. Burduli stopped moving and was staring daggers at Dandros. Dandros looked a bit ashamed from the reprimand, but he gathered himself quickly. It is true that I have neglected my call and my craft to work as a miner for the past 5 years. It was not easy in the doing, but the road to journeyman is one that my Jarl did not have to partake in. I have since taken up the tools of my craft since the incident, and I must report to you now. Dandros, now fully composed with his faith in Belden, corrected his posture. The height of the dais was just enough to keep the shorter dwarf at eye level to the much taller Dandros. I cut my beard when I realized that the offense that I performed to Lord Belden. But we aren't here to talk about my faith. We are here to save the city of Durg, if the Jarl would be willing to hear. Then let it be so. Let us hear this horrid tale. Jarl Burduli stated flatly. With that, Dandros recounted the attack on Malatin, the abduction of the people of Malatin, and the rescue mission, as well as the number of goblins that were seen, as well as this supposed Skald. He told the numbers that were witnessed and provided information on what they knew were taken. After the recounting, the Jarl returned to his throne. Jarl Burduli stroked his considerable beard. Very well. I will take your counsel to heart. You may go. Dandros, now upset. Very well. That's all you have to say about this information? By the forge fire in the holy city of Durg, you only say, very well. With this, the Jarl stood up once again in a fashion that made the guards in the room ready themselves for battle. Meine Dandros, I would advise you to remember your place here in this holy city. I have heard your words and will take them under consideration. The elven contingency can guard the western road and that rubble that is there if they wish. I will double the guard and be on the alert for this attack, but that is it. Nothing more. You should visit the temple and remember the road that you swore to walk. A stonecutter would never allow themselves to become the miner and keep a whisker upon his face. You'll shame yourself, you'll shame the city, you'll shame the Lord of the Forge. Clearly, you have forgotten your place here, in this city. You are dismissed. Another outburst and you'll find yourself in the dungeon. And remember your place. Am I clear? Very well, Dandros responded, with a half-hearted bow. Lahti returned the bow to the Jarl and began to leave. Dandros made it all the way to the door before he turned on the Jarl. Apprentice of the Forge, you would do well to remember your place. You speak of Velden in the way that is not befitting of an apprentice of the Forge. You have allowed the crown of the city to cloud your mind. I hope you choke on that crown. With that, the Jarl called for the guards to seize Dandros and asked Lahti, You have heard my decision. Do you accept my gracious decision, or do you wish to join Dandros in the dungeons? Lahti bowed once more. I respect the decision and will be happy to guard the flank of the city. Lahti watched as Dandros was taken from the chamber, powerless to do anything, but thinking to herself that his temper got to him in this situation. If she were talked to in that way, what would she have done? Lahti guessed very much the same. Upon exiting the Jarl's chambers, Lahti was greeted by a dwarven soldier dressed in fine plate mail armor. With a bow of his head, holding his helm in his left hand, Greetings, Captain Lahti. I am Captain Igor Dimadov. I will show you to the western barracks, where your soldiers will be welcome to take up position there. Once you see this western tunnel and the fortifications there, I will assume that you will understand the Jarl's position on the matter. The movement of the forces in the city are under my authority, and I will be doubling the guard there. We will also move some of our forces to be stationed in the western barracks. I regret to inform you that the barracks will be in some disrepair, as it hasn't been used in 200 years. We haven't needed it since the road was closed down and the calm set in. We will make do with the arrangements, and I do hope that we're being overprotective of Durg, and that everything is in order. I thank you, Captain. Lahti shook the hand of Captain Dimadov, and allowed him to lead her back to her soldiers. Say, Captain, where would be a good place for my soldiers to get a hot meal that's close to the barracks? With a smile, and glad to have de-escalated the situation. There would be no other place that I'd recommend in that part of Durg than the Mint. To be fair, my cousin Sampson owns it. But he will treat you well. It's just inside the industrial district, close to the staircase to the business district. We can pass by there and show you this place. Durg is a little different to navigate than topside cities. I'm sure you'll get the hang of things while you are here. But now that I think of it, if you have any in your lot that are vegetarian, the Mint would have you covered as well. But if you're looking for more green options, I'd have to point you to the Woven Beard in the business district. They have a good supply line for fruits and vegetables, and can take care of you. And if we get bored of these two establishments, where would you recommend beyond that? With a laugh. If you get bored of these two, I'd explore around the business district. The places in the industrial get a little rowdy from time to time. With that, the pair of captains rounded up Lahti's soldiers and headed towards the western barracks. Back in the Dragontooth Mountains, the snow had subsided, but the wind had not. Of course, with all this fresh snow on the ground, the full blizzard changed into a ground blizzard. Meg, Jaina, and Regos were still trudging along at a slow pace. Meg was not looking good. She was beginning to waver with each step, staggering a bit. Sheer will and determination kept her pushing forward. They hadn't found any source of wood at this point, and from the looks of things, they likely wouldn't before nightfall. If the wind didn't let up, or if they didn't find shelter, Meg was going to be in a world of hurt. Exhaustion had her, as well as the cold. And that's when she fell. Meg fell face first into a snowbank. Jaina ran to her side and was there just before Regos. Meg, stay with us now. Now is not the time to go off in dreamland. Regos, help me get her on a holly. Together they got Meg on the back of the donkey and tied her to the beast of burden. Things were getting urgent now. The temperatures were colder now than they were this morning and dropping all the while. I see why you harvest early in the season now. A storm like this would kill all kinds of crops. Meg, darling, hang in there. We'll get you someplace warm soon. Or we'll be joining you on the back of this poor donkey, and I don't think she can handle all three of us. Jaina took the donkey's lead and proceeded to march, doing the best as she was adapted to the altitude and the temperature better than the others. Regos needed as little burden as he could manage, otherwise he'd be on the donkey next. Regos was right about one thing. They needed shelter, and they needed it before long. Otherwise, they would be taken in the night. Regos was speaking more to himself, but in the break of the wind, he could be heard. Maybe the dragon would still swallow us. Needs to be warm for a bit. They continued this way at their slow pace, but now a little faster, based on need more than newfound vigor. The sun raced across the sky as the group traveled in and around some more of the spires of the Dragontooth Mountains. Snow constantly blowing, but they did get breaks from the wind from time to time. With all that, they found no shelter. By the time the sun was setting, Meg was laying on the back of Holly, hugging the beast. Jaina was still leading the animal, while Regos was rubbing Meg's back trying to get a little warmth in her. She was barely holding on to consciousness, but she was. And the sun set on them. Regos cast a spell on Jaina's glaive to produce light for them to travel by. They traveled in silence. Even Regos was in no joking mood. As they came to the top of another spire, they saw something that lifted their spirits. They saw a flickering light of fire. A pair of them, to be exact. They couldn't make out much at the distance, but they had hope. It was almost as if the gods themselves had smiled on them. The wind died down as soon as they saw the outline of the building. They wanted to run to the structure, but they could not. Regos was holding on to Holly to keep himself on his feet at this point. Legs were starting to go numb on him. And Jaina's armor had her freezing as well. The padding that she wore under the armor had long since chilled her. The extra layers did help keep her warm for a while, but that time was over. As they approached the structure, it was a round inn that the roof looked like it had a sleeping dragon on top of it. It was a cartoonish version of a dragon, all curled up like a ball, like it was sleeping on top of the four walls. The lights were coming from two large windows reflecting the firelight from within. Regos didn't believe it when he saw the sign above the door. The Dragon Roof Inn. All the stories he had heard of the place, and to find it here in the middle of nowhere in the Dragontooth Mountains was not what he was expecting. The inn was a legend that he long thought was a myth. Regos had seen evidence and even shared stories about the place with other people, and here it was, their saving grace. "Thank you, Alice," was all that he heard coming through from Jaina. Regos ran ahead now, truly revitalized in the presence of the inn. "Help! We need a little help here!" he shouted into the night. With luck, the door of the establishment opened, and out came two people to help get them inside. One took the donkey, the other took Meg and carried her into the inn. With Holly tucked away in the stables, Jaina and Regos were brought into the common room of the inn and sat down in front of the fireplace, a long, crushed red velvet couch. The place was a murmur with the inhabitants talking amongst each other. Regos was trying and failing to take in the place. The bar. He had to see the bar. Now, there'll be plenty of time for that, but first, no guest of mine is going to die on me." An aging human came over to them and placed his hand on their heads, checking temperatures. The man was of average build, with a bit of a beer belly. His long white hair was hanging loose about the shoulders and down his back. He wore a red tunic with dark brown trousers. "Ceri, at your service. Sadie, let's get these two a warm soup. This one, she's going to need a bath to warm her up before she'll be able to eat, I fear." Ceri started calling out for some ale and soup and for someone to start a bath for Meg. Ceri placed a blanket on Meg, made of what looked to be wolf fur. As soon as the blanket was around her, she stirred a bit. "It's so warm," was all she managed to say before drifting off a bit. Well, you're an interesting lot, aren't you? Local girl," pointing to Jaina. Let's see, a lad from Gerinder, if I had to guess. And a lass from the deserts of Kendor, but not a Crixian. An interesting lot indeed. How'd you end up here in the middle of nowhere? Your curiosity can wait, Ceri. Let's get these people on their feet first. Here you go, chicken and dumplings for the local lass, paired with a mulled cider, and just a touch of whiskey to warm those bones. And for the gent, spiced eel stew, paired with a spiced ale with twist peppers. It should perk the two of you right on up. Sadie was a halfling woman with bright red hair, wearing a cozy green top and a white dress that flowed as she walked. Ceri helped Jaina and Regos over to the table, close to the fire, so they could eat and warm up. Jaina dove into the dumplings, realizing just now how hungry she was. Regos dipped into the stew, pulling out a healthy chunk of eel and some of the pepper that was mixed in with it. Both gave a very satisfied expression with their first bites. Regos then realized what the old man had said. "How'd you point me at being from Gerinder? No one ever gets me right." Ceri laughed. "Oh, it's a little gift I have. I've traveled the world so many times that I can pick out someone's heritage, more times than not. Oh, you were difficult to point, being half-elf, but your human heritage, I would have put good coin on a bet that I was right. It all depends on if you were a seafaring lad or not. You were in luck on the stew. I had a hankering for some eel and cooked it up just this afternoon. Was hoping we'd have someone that would share a bowl with me. Eel isn't for everyone." With a laugh. No, it's not indeed. I've not had spiced eel stew since I left home. Thank you for this. We had a lady that would fix it for us. She helped around the house and such, and made the best spiced eel stew that I'd ever eaten. If I'd known any better, I'd ask how you got her recipe. This tastes so close to alias spiced stew eel. Well now, you all eat up and get your things in your rooms. I assume 3 rooms would suffice. Jaina nodded in response. We will draw the 2 of you a bath as well. Wouldn't hurt either of you to let the warmth soak all the way through to the bones. Before long, Meg was awake, eating some food of her own. Some kind of curry dish with potatoes and lentils. three were shown to their room and was soaking in a nice hot bath, each with scented soaps and nice soft warm washcloths. Regos was drinking a really nice ale. That was proof that the old innkeeper from the Golden Imp hadn't been lying. He had asked for her ale by name and was served a mug of just that. Now he knew how she ended up in the place. She lived right down the road from the hiding hole. After a good ale, a bath, and a smoke, Regos crawled into bed and practically died in that bed, with a soft down feather mattress, silk sheets with a heavy blanket. His last thought before sleep took him was, "I best not wake up in a damn snowbank tomorrow, because this is way too nice." With that thought, he was asleep, and so too were Meg and Jaina. Lore Corner, the Mint. "At least eating here won't cost you a mint." Common saying about the mint. Tucked away in the corner of the industrial district of Durg, with easy access to the business district, the Mint is a large restaurant designed to feed a lot of working people. Granted, the food draws in a crowd from the business district as well. Here the place is ran by Sampson Dimadov. It's been in the Dimadov family for 5 generations. The stone structure with carved pillars is a welcome sight to all that frequent the halls of Durg and found this little gem of a place. Above the door is a large copper coin with the words, "The Mint," set upon it in inlay. The windows are leaded stained glass with depictions of Belden making the first coins that would become the currency that was used in all of Kheasurid. The place is typically lively, and the food is known to be good if you're into dwarven fare. If you're not, you may need to find a meal somewhere else, but for the working class people of Durg, only their mother's kitchens would be better. There's always tavern stew available, and with that stew comes dwarven meat pies, stable enough to take with you as you go. Then there are meatballs with gravy, and potato and leek soup, comfort foods for the people of Durg and the dwarven people alike. It's said that you don't go for the conversation, but always end up finding it in spades. There's no local bar in the establishment, just tables and a kitchen and a waitstaff traveling around like ants coming in and out of the anthill. With the establishment having been in the family for so long, it's no surprise that the next generation is working in the kitchen. If you were to ask Sampson what his craft is, his response would be, "Ah, you're eating it." And travelers, this is where we will leave our journey this time. Everyone tucked away in bed, safe and secure. Though Dandros' bed isn't as nice as the others. But what will come of Dandros and his tongue? What will Jaina, Meg, and Regos do once awakened? And will they still be in the nice soft feather beds? We shall find out in the next episode of the Calmbringer Cycle. I want to thank Adrian von Ziegler for the rights to use his music to make the story all that much better. For this month, travelers, I will be making the legendary dwarven meat pies from the Mint that we discussed in the Lore Corner today. We will be visiting that establishment in the future, but in the meantime, we will just have to share in a meal from there. This recipe is one that has become a staple in my kitchen since discovering this recipe. I hope it finds its way into your kitchen as well. With that said, I want to thank you for listening. If you wish to support the podcast, a rating where you find the podcast would mean a lot. A simple thumbs up over in YouTube, or subscribe if you really like it. If you want to support a bit more and get the recipes of Kheasurid in your kitchen, as well as additional lore content, please support me over on Patreon. That's patreon.com/goldenimpin. Signing up will give you access to our Discord server. I hope to build a great community over there. But I can only do that with you. So why don't you join us and join the conversation? If you want to follow me outside the podcast space, you can find me over on Blue Sky at Empress Skald. With that said, I am Joe Craig, the Empress Skald. Thank you for listening, and remember, you've been scalded.